Hey, hi, hello, it's Jess, and my head ain't nappy no more. I don't know how long this will last, but I did go to the salon today, and of course it was like, it had more, this is wave, curl, whatever, but you know, even though it's not super hot, humidity, and it's kind of falling down, but whatever. I just feel good not to look like I usually do. Mess. Anyway, if you can tell, we are here for the best books of 2022. This video was actually really hard to plan because it's been a rough year of reading. I've read a lot of good books, a lot of meh books, and some great. You know, like I just don't have a lot of amazing. So this list is a combination of amazing, like all-time favorites, and a few that were great, like really great books. But just because every book that has 5 stars isn't weighted the same, you know what I'm saying? Like I can give this book 5 stars because it was what I needed in the moment. I read it really fast, I was in it, I was feeling it, but it may not have a long-lasting impact versus another book that I read that was 5 stars. There's just different levels. But yeah, this list is not all like 5-star favorite of all time reads, which makes me really sad, but it is what it is. So let me get my phone because I had to write them down because I had to dig through my Goodreads list for this year of what I read. And I was like, oh yeah, I did read that. So that's just telling you how my year went. These are not ranked because there's a clear winner at the top, and the rest, I don't know. There's like two like all-time favorites, like I know for sure, and then other ones, I don't know. But any whoosums, these are not in order. But Middle Game by Shauna McGuire, which I still don't own a copy of. That's kind of sad. I need to purchase that. But of course, this book was, did I challenge myself to, oh, it was like books on my anti-TBR that I did not want to read, and I didn't want to read this book because the cover kind of creeped me out. I didn't like the hand, and then also I had heard the characters' names were Roger and Dodger, and I was like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I don't want to read it. Are those valid reasons? Yes. Okay. Any reason you don't want to read a book? Valid. Well, maybe not any reason. But anyway, so I went into this, I'm like, oh yeah, this is going to be a rant review. I'm going to hate this. I loved it. So that, I feel like it's such a hard book to explain, but Roger and Dodger are twins, and they're separated at birth, and they are part of this big, like, alchemical, so alchemy, experiment, plan, process thing that these people are doing. But they're raised separately, and then you're following them, you're seeing them when they're younger and then older, and how, when they connect, and what that means for this whole alchemical plan, and what the people want to do with the alchemical plan, and like journey. Now, I will say, this book does have a plot, but it's very slow moving, and it's more character focused. So in the first like 20-25%, if you don't really start caring for Roger or Dodger, you're not gonna enjoy this book. But I was like, oh, my sweet little lambs. So I loved it, and I was stressed, and I was sad and happy and worried and all the things. So that is definitely one of my top favorite books this year, and probably of all time. There was a sequel or like a continuation that came out this year, I think, Seasonal Fears, and I haven't read that yet. I've heard mixed things, and it doesn't follow. It doesn't follow Roger and Dodger, and so I haven't been too like pressed to read it. I will eventually, but Middle Game was amazing, and it can just be read as a standalone. I feel like it's weird to put this on here, but I'm not doing separate fiction or nonfiction lists this year just because, again, not a great year. So I'm putting I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy, which is a memoir, on here because it definitely is one of the most impactful nonfiction books that I've read this year, and definitely one of the best memoirs that I've read. And the title, I mean, the memoir earns the title, and it covers a lot of things that Jeanette McCurdy went through. I never watched like the shows that she was on Nickelodeon, but I like knew of her. And so it was interesting to hear her recount that, how she even got into acting, the relationship that she had with her family, and especially her mother, and, you know, various abuse. So just content warning for like eating disorders, mental abuse, sexual abuse. There's just a lot in there, and it feels weird saying I loved reading this memoir, or this is such a great memoir. I think it is a great memoir, but it always feels weird when a book contains things like that to be like, oh my god, read it, it's so good. But it is, but I'm not like, yay, those things happen. But I don't know, I listened to the audiobook, she narrates it, I thought it was great, and a lot of people did too. It was a very popular memoir this year, I think from the title alone. But yes, if you haven't read it, I would recommend it. Okay, now I feel like this is when I mean when a 5-star rating on this book doesn't equal a 5-star rating on this book, because I do have some romances on this list. Not to say they can't be a favorite forever, but at least for this year, they are a favorite. So the first one that I'm gonna talk about is The Fastest Way to Fall by Denise Williams. And I fell in love with this one, and I think I have it somewhere in this mess that is my shelves, but certain romances stick with me when I just like really love the characters and feel like they feel like real people. And Wes and Britta stick in my mind. Like I can't even always remember the names of the characters in a romance, even if I really enjoyed it, but Wes and Britta just stay in my mind, and their conversations and their interactions. And I think one of the big things with Fastest Way to Fall, so this is interracial, there's black woman, white man, and you know, he had his issues he was dealing with, like he had issues with his mom, and that was a big stressor in his life, and an ex. But Britta, really, her only issue really was the romance. Like there was no conflict of like, she had a great family. She was just like a happy black girl. She's like a plus size woman. She's not trying to get skinnier. She loved herself. She was just trying to get stronger. Like there were not like that's bad in a book. I just was like, she was just living her best life, and then meets this man. And then of course there's the ups and downs with building a relationship or whatever, but I loved it so much. So that's definitely gotta be on my list for this year. Another one that I have is Dead Silence. And Dead Silence is on this list because I wouldn't say this is like favorite of all time, but like of the books I read this year, it was amazing. And it is a sci-fi thriller in space, or did they put it under horror? I think it's more like a sci-fi thriller. And it's basically like, when I read the synopsis, I immediately thought of Ghost Ship, the movie with Juliana Margulies. What was that in, like either the late 90s or the early aughts? But I love that movie, and well, when I watched it back then, I haven't watched it in a long time. Essentially, it's like that. There is an abandoned cruise ship in space. So like it's a cruise spaceship. Yes, and it's been missing for like 20 years, and this crew that was on like some unrelated mission hears a signal, and they go out and they discover this abandoned ship, and it's like, what happened? And of course it was abandoned, like no one on the ship was ever heard from again, all of that. So it's like, do we get on it? Do we go home? Of course my black ass would say let's go home, but there are people who are like, let's go on and see what's going on, maybe we can salvage stuff. And terror, horror, bad things ensue. It is 2 timelines because we are getting like the present day, and so we know this person made it off of the ship, and they're recounting the story. They're kind of being interrogated, and then we're getting the story back when they discover the ship. And there's a lot going on. There's a lot of tension between the, I guess, employees, yeah, the crew members, and then somebody is hearing this and someone's like, nah, you crazy. And then someone's like, oh, wait, I did see that. And you're like, are these people hallucinating? Are they on drugs? Are they tired? Are they running out of oxygen? Is this real? Lots of questions. I thought it was great. Fast paced. I was gonna say fun. I mean, kind of, because, you know, I do read for fun, but like the things that were happening in the book weren't fun, if that makes sense. But definitely, if you are interested in like a sci-fi thriller, I think Dead Silence is chef's kiss. And I hope to get more books like that, because I was like, this is what I want. It also would make a really good movie. Somebody, Anybody? Not anybody, right? Not anybody. Okay, some of these books I actually own and I'm like really mad because they're pretty. Okay, so I had my patrons vote on one of my Fairy Loot books because Fairy Loot has their adult book only box and I am subscribed to it, and they have had some beautiful editions. Now, some of those books, Book of Night, were terrible, but I have read some more of them and I've been winning so far. I've been on a good streak after Book of Night. But the next one is Her Majesty's Royal Coven by Juno Dawson. I had never heard of Juno Dawson before. I don't know how. She has a huge backlist. And I was like, what is this bright ass book? Like, I thought it was cool. And then wait for the naked hardcover. Whoa. I was like, okay, this is dope, whatever, but I haven't heard anything about it. And then I read it and I was like, I really love this. I think on the Goodreads, maybe I gave it a 4. Maybe I said 4.25, whatever. I've thought about this a lot since I finished it, and I am dying for the sequel. It is currently on NetGalley and I requested it and it's still pending, and I'm like, please, please give it to me. Because a cliffhanger, oh my God. This book is, so Her Majesty's Royal Coven. This is set in the UK, yes, in the UK. And in this world, it's like a modern day setting, but with witches. Witches and warlocks exist. And so we're following like a group of friends who've known each other for a really long time. So we see that in the beginning, excuse me. And then we're following them like 25 years later, which I love because I feel like a lot of adult books, they're usually around like in their they're like 19 to their early 20s, and they're in their 30s. And I was like, what's up? And so some of them are still like using their magic. Like that's what they do for work. And some of them are like, maybe they use it occasionally, and some are like, I don't want anything to do with that. And they are going to be back in each other's lives for a reason. There is a prophecy. There is this child that people are worried about. And a lot of things, a lot of happenings happening. At first I was just like, okay, this is fun, this is fun, this is fun. You see, I don't know how to act. I don't know how to act when I get my head in. But I was like, this is fun, this is fun. And then I was like, oh my God, wait, I'm worried, I'm invested. So at first it was just like a fun romp. And then I was like, oh snap. I am worried about some of these characters. And we got some backstabbing and betrayal. And secrets coming back from the past. Sorry.
Oh, I gotta take Nigel so you do it.
Okay.
Cool.
It's a lot going on in here. I think this is supposed to be a trilogy, but anywho, oh my God, my fingerprints. Okay, hold on, let me put this down. Anywho, I was really surprised because I had heard nothing about that book before I got it from Fairy Loot, and now I just want the sequel. Please, if someone from Penguin is listening, please approve me on NetGalley. The next one on my list would be The Secret Lives of Church Ladies by Disha Philishaw. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I, for some reason, thought this was a nonfiction book, but it is fiction. And it's basically short stories of various secret lives of church ladies. But I think the reason this one has stuck with me is because I have either a part of a story or a full character from the story I have either related to personally, or I know those people like in the church. And basically they're telling you their stories of like, this is who they are outwardly and to the church, but these are their feelings like behind closed doors and things they're not comfortable or wanting to share because of being in the church. And so those stories were just super unique. I think that you would even find them really compelling even if you didn't relate to them directly or knew someone. But being someone who, you know, has been a member of a church, especially a Black church, and still having family very much in the Black church, I don't consider myself in that. Don't tell my family that. But so those stories, like I said, I thought it was a nonfiction. I was like, oh my God, like I thought these were real people who had just like sent in their accounts or something. But it was fictional. I'm sure that these are based off of real things and there are people out here who have lives just like this. But yes, I just felt connected to it. I related to it. I felt sad by it. And I think it just connected because of this journey that I've been on with deconstruction from organized religion. And so I just was like, I hate how most religions, I will not say all, I don't know all of them, but I feel like most religions require people to hide a part of themselves, subdue a part of themselves, lie about a part of who they are. And not all people, like everyone isn't queer, everyone isn't whatever you may be that your religion doesn't align with. But I feel like a lot of people in organized religion have feelings and thoughts and views and things that maybe don't align with their religious practice. And so they have to hide part of themselves. And so, yeah, I don't know. It's pretty short. I'm pretty sure. I don't even know. Is it 200 pages? Maybe. So I think it's worth the read. You should check it out. Okay, this, I wasn't expecting to be on this list, but this is still one that has stuck with me since I read it, and that is How High We Go in the Dark by Sequoia Nagamatsu. Did this come out this year? I think so, because it was on my anticipated releases. If not this year, it was last year. And so I just think it's a really unique piece of science fiction, at least that I've read. And so it almost is like a short story collection, but it's not. They're all written by him, and they're all like little individual, what do you call it, vignettes maybe, of people story, but they all like intertwine, because this is like near future, maybe 2050 on Earth, and we start in maybe Russia or something, like in I was about to say Cambodia. That is not it. And the cold place up in Russia, I can't think of the name right now. Okay, wait. The cold place up in Russia? Serbia. No. Siberia, I think. And people are out there and they're researching and they're whatever, and they basically discover this virus. And so this book is very much a pandemic book. And so we're seeing little vignettes from different people around the world and their experiences with the pandemic, but not all just like people and their families. Like we have some people who are working in a hospital. We have some people who are working at hotels that have been kind of converted into basically like hospice places, and this one guy who's like at this theme park where children who are about to die go. Like all these various, I'm not gonna say some of these stories are not unique, weird, strange, and I really wanna reread it, particularly for some stories I don't think I understood as well, and then I got to the end and I was like, oh, and I'm like, okay, now I really want to go back and reread that. But it's very interesting to see how it starts, and then to see how the stories are interconnected, because you'll be in one story and you'll be like, oh, they're referencing that person who was in that story, and then by the time you get to the end, and I just, not like I'm like an expert on like plague or pandemic books, but I just thought it was an interesting take, and just the different perspectives we got to see of people and their responses and things that happen in society that maybe some are far-fetched and other ones aren't so much. So I still think about that one pretty often. I don't think a lot of people read it. I know some people did. I think more people should. Like, it deserves to get more eyeballs on its pages than it's had. So yeah, that was good. Different, but real good. I feel like I had to put these next two on here just because I've been in such a weird reading mood, and they have really been soothing my soul, and I've realized exactly what I want to read right now. And the first one I read is, wait, let me go back to Google because I can never remember the entire title. The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandana, I think. So I had not heard of this book, and I think Elle mentioned it one time. I don't even remember what we were talking about. And she was saying it was just really like cozy, very cute fantasy. And so I borrowed it from the library, and like I said, I didn't know what I was getting into. But essentially in this world we have witches, but they, the people don't know about them. And so this group of witches, because there's different ones in different regions, but this group of witches in the UK, they have like, I think it was quarterly meetings or something in this random location, because they like didn't want to be tracked. They didn't want to know people. So like their belief, the leader basically of their coven essentially was under the belief that it was best if they don't interact with each other. Like the witches, they only come together these certain times a year for this random meeting to discuss if there's any issues, any problems, and then to go about their way. So like, do not socialize with other witches. And it is not just her belief, but it is a thing in this world that when there's more witches in one area, there's more magic, and like the power, it gets more concentrated. So that can sometimes cause issues. Anywhoosie doozy, our main character, I might have forgot her name, but that doesn't matter. So she is a witch, but she also is on TikTok, and she does like witchy TikToks, but not like, she's not showing her like real witchiness. She's kind of doing it like just for views and aesthetic and a way to like do some kind of witchiness in front of people, since she really can't. And anyway, she gets contacted by this man who's at this house, who's basically requesting her to come out there and teach these young little witches, there's 3 of them I believe, basically how to yield their magic and their power, because they have like this upcoming deadline of sorts. And so she agrees, and she ends up moving into like, they basically have this big, like 2 big houses, and she's teaching the kids, and it's just so pure and cozy and happy and whimsical, and I love the kids and all the people. So it's like him, the guy who called her, and his partner, and then there's this lady, and then there's this other dude, and there's like a little bit of romance in the story, and the kids are hilarious, and one is just so feisty and like she takes some warming up to. And then you're seeing that she has to, the main character in the story, what she has to deal with when, you know, their head witch of the coven is like, you know, contacting her, because really this isn't supposed to be happening. These 3 witches, like normally they would separate them and they wouldn't have them all growing up together. And so it is just, I was so worried for the babies when this upcoming deadline and what was happening and what they were worried about. And then like the romance, it's not like a fantasy romance, but it is definitely a fantasy with romance, if that makes sense. And I just was like, I need y'all to be in love. And she has a dog who's very precious. Everything about this was what my soul needed. It just went, and I said, yes, that's what I did. So it was a perfect cozy fantasy for me. Now I will say, now please hear me out. I would say that if you love The House in the Cerulean Sea and comma, asterisk, pause, parentheses, whatever, I know the issues with where TJ Klune got his inspiration for The House in the Cerulean Sea. However, comma, I'm just saying, if you liked The House in the Cerulean Sea and the cozy fantasy of that, you would love this book. Yes. We're nearing the end. How am I already at 25 minutes? I don't know. So then I have Half a Soul, which is by Olivia Atwater, I believe. And I've seen this one around and I didn't really know what it was for a while. And it is another fantasy. I would say it's a fantasy with romance. I don't know if you would exactly call it a fantasy romance, but that's just my opinion. But this is like Regency fantasy. And so we have this gal, forgot her name, I'm so sorry. And at the beginning, she has this encounter with Faye, and the Faye takes something from her, and so she's never quite right after that. Her family has died. She's living basically with her aunt and her cousin. Her aunt is just always like, what are we gonna do with that girl? She's weird. How are we gonna marry her off? And so her cousin is having like her coming out in society, so they go into London for this time and for her to meet, you know, a husband. And they meet some more gentlemen who are there, and one seems very persnickety, he has a very interesting reputation around London, and he, you know, they're going to balls and stuff and dinners, and they keep running into each other, and he has this issue where there are children that are basically just like falling asleep and not waking up, and he's trying to figure out what's going on there. And there's all this like matchmaking. I'm like, no, we want you to be with this person, and she's like, ain't nobody gonna marry me. And her cousin's like, we gotta figure this out, and we gotta do this. And then there's magician and stuff and romance and stuff. Didn't that sound good? Okay, but seriously, I can't say more than that because it's gonna spoil it. But yes, again, hug me. Just felt so good. Just a lot of like humor, and like the persnickety dude, like, oh my god, he was something else. He was just so sassy and like did not have time for people, and I was like, same. And I just liked watching the romance blossom in this story. And there's a lot of Fae stories out there in fantasy, right? They're not always sometimes I'm like, oh, that's it. But I felt like this was a nice balance of putting that in there, but that's not the focus of the story. And I really did love it. And I think there's more, but not following the same, like the main characters aren't the same. So I have requested the second one, but it's on hold at the library. I guess everybody's just reading it. I'm like, how dare you? But yes, warm hug. I needed it. Loved it. And so now I'm on the hunt for every book related to this, like cozy fantasy with some romance. Like that's all I want to read right now. So if you have recommendations down below, let me know, especially if they are by a non-white author, because I've been reading a bunch, but they're all by white women, which is fine, but I would like to read some other ones. You know what I'm saying? Except, well, the Society of Regular Witches was not a white lady, so that's good, but I'm just saying. Okay, and the last one, I don't know if this is gonna be a surprise or not. Can y'all guess what my absolute top favorite book of the year was? Can you? Oh Lord, I'm about to die in here because of this damn dog. I don't know if y'all know what my favorite book of the year was, but I only have a couple of copies of it here. Just a few. Just a couple of Babel. Or The Necessity of Violence, an arcane history of the Oxford Translator's Revolution. Now, this was one of my most anticipated books of the year. And I was nervous because, you know, been having a rough year, but it gave what it was supposed to have give to me. It is very pleasing to me. Some people didn't like this, and I tried to, in my review of Babel months ago, try to set people's expectations that this isn't some super high fantasy, high magic book. It's very low magic. Some people can argue that it's not fantasy at all, but it is. And so this is more of a literary, historical fantasy. Yes, that's what I would say. And I thought it was pure magic. I thought Rebecca's writing was incredible and elevated from the Poppy War series. I thought that the characters were amazing and heartbreaking. I thought that I loved how she took a story or a part of history, right? Colonialism, colonization, whatever, that the English did, and then added in language. She studies language. I think language is so super fascinating, and I love how that was the magic system, and just the violence. She said necessity of violence, and it was, and it hurt. And I feel like I already loved Babel. Like a lot. And then that silly gal came out with her 0-star review, and I was like, wait, I love it more. Okay. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I will link that video below, but I don't know what else I have to say for this book except that I thought it was exquisite. It felt, and some people don't like this, what I'm about to say. They think, that was a negative for them, but it was a plus for me. This felt very academic. And R.F. Kuang is working on, I don't know, her 13th degree or something. She's super smart. This felt like an academic piece of work, but like not boring to me. I just enjoyed going through it slowly and taking notes. I loved the footnotes and the history that was put in here. And obviously the elements that were changed because it is a fictional, fantastical story. I love the setting of it in Oxford, just small moments of them eating scones and the happy moments that we got. Maybe they weren't a lot, but those moments I really cherished. And so no one is going to tell me different. If you say Babel was, if you said, I thought Babel was a little, if you're like, Babel was, shut up. I don't want to hear it. Keep your opinions over there. Don't bring that here, okay? This is a masterpiece. It should be in the Louvre. Be quiet if that doesn't make sense. I do not care. This is my favorite book of the year of our Lord 2022. Babel by Rebecca F. Kuang. She did that. Yes. Yes, God. So that is the end for me and my hair that I don't know how to deal with. Those were my top books of the year. And that's not to say, I know I didn't have this wonderful year, but I did have, you know, I did have a decent year. There were some books that really stuck with me. And I've really been enjoying the cozy fantasy bag that I'm in. So again, if you have those recs, put them down below. Were any of these books on your list? Let me know, or tell me your favorite book of the year. But I think that's going to do it for me. So stay blessed, hydrated, moisturized, and sunscreen, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.